So almost once every week, when I'm scrolling Reddit, I come across this clip from Bahubali, almost always posted by a non-South Asian person, presumably European or North American, expressing their fascination about how absolutely bonkers this scene is. The funny part, however, is that when I was watching this scene in theaters, I actually didn't mind it that much. I mean, as an Indian audience, we've been seeing some ridiculous stuff. Cars flying, bullets being deflected, people creating tornadoes with their feet. So what's one more scene with some reality-shattering action by people who aren't even superheroes? But that got me thinking, how do we explain to a non-South Asian audience how we got here? And if we rewind back the clock, I think the answers can be found somewhere in this 5-minute action scene from the movie Diwar.
Peter?
Coming in as the second real hit of Amitabh Bachchan's career, well before his superstar domination was a foregone conclusion.
मैं आज भी फेंके हुए पैसे नहीं उठाता.
Diwar did something revolutionary. It showcased a single protagonist beating up not just one villain, but multiple henchmen at the same time. Of course, this was entirely inspired by a movie that had come just 2 years before, Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. Often cited as one of the most influential kung fu films of all time, the movie cemented Lee's image as a one-man army. Never before in cinema had there been someone so powerful enough to defeat multiple antagonists. Of course, there had been superheroes in the cultural zeitgeist, but these were superpowered beings, not regular humans. But of course, Bruce Lee was one of a kind. So the writers of the movie, Salim Khan and Javed Akhtar, took their cues from the kung fu genre and introduced those to a genre that they had created 2 years prior, that came to dominate the Indian cinema, called the masala genre, with the two seminal films Yadon Ki Baaraat and Zanjeer. These movies mix action, comedy, romance, drama or melodrama and started the trend of using picturesque locations for their songs. Zanjeer, which was the first collaboration between Amitabh and Salim Javed, took a lot from the detective genre of the West, but retained a lot of the realism of those movies, with the fight scenes being gritty and realistic. Diwar, however, wholly rejected these realistic cues. Gone were the limitations of human capabilities. The hero could now defeat multiple people at once, but along with this came a rejection of any formal training. While Bruce Lee clearly showed his dominance as a product of being well-versed in formal martial art forms, more so than his opponents, the hero in masala films won because he was the hero. This was possibly due to the limitations of the fact that you couldn't teach the actors kung fu in such a short time frame, but also to elevate the myth of the hero, similar to the spaghetti westerns that Salim Javed later adapted in the same year in Sholay. Of course, this style didn't stay centralized in Bollywood. The movie acted like a Roger Bannister moment for Indian cinema. For those who don't know, Roger Bannister was the first person to run a sub 4-minute mile in history. And within months, there were a number of athletes who were running sub 4-minute miles. Because once you know something is possible, there's no limit to how far you can push it. By the early 80s, Shivaji Rao Gaikwad, professionally known as Rajinikanth, had firmly established himself as the leading action hero in the Tamil cinema. In 1981, he starred in the Tamil remake of Diwar, Thi.
Peter?
A self-confessed Amitabh Bachchan fan, Rajinikanth took a lot of the cues from the strongman image Amitabh Bachchan had built, but slowly cranking them up to 11. He couldn't just fight a bunch of bad guys. He could deflect bullets, open safes with a headbutt, make knives fly, and most importantly, light matchsticks with his eyes. And you can certainly draw a straight line from Rajinikanth to the hyperrealism of the action scenes we see today, but interestingly, the South wasn't the only place that Diwar influenced. Being the super hit movie that Diwar was, it was remade twice in the Hong Kong cinema. The first, a more faithful adaptation called The Brothers. It wasn't a big hit. However, after another 7 years, the movie was remade again into a more loose adaptation called A Better Tomorrow by a director named John Woo. They obviously weren't remaking the movie for the action. Hong Kong cinema had action. The movie was remade for the dramatic weight of the original, which at that time was a unique story of two brothers on the opposite side of the law, something that gave life to a whole new genre in the Hong Kong industry called heroic bloodshed. A variation of the masala genre minus the singing, heroic bloodshed was described by a strong, uncompromising protagonist on the side of the law, usually modeled after the hard-boiled detective with a mix of family and brotherhood thrown in. Wu, who was coming off a string of commercial disappointments back in 1986, decided to throw one last Hail Mary, securing a shoestring budget and make the movie with his own unique and unfettered style, a style that we still talk about today. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind back. John Woo's first real commercial success, A Better Tomorrow, a more loose adaptation of Diwar, saw Woo apply what came to be known as his signature style of directing, a style that he perfected in his 1993 movie, Hard Target. First, use slow motion by cutting in on the moment of impact to really show its devastation. Second, film the moment of impact from multiple angles and use all of them to make the impact look even bigger than it already is. And third, always use dual-wield pistols when you can. At that time, Woo's methodology was seen as groundbreaking but also too arduous to actually replicate. Wu, who was inspired by the slow motion in movies like The Wild Bunch and the Hong Kong cinema, where the slow motion was used to show the devastation caused by the impact and the violence, instead chose to elevate and almost glorify violence to a level of fetishization. No audience had seen impact feel so violent on screen at the time. And if you've noticed, you can see Woo's influence is ubiquitous in Indian cinema now, coming into full swing with the 2006 super hit Telugu film Pokiri and its subsequent 2007 Tamil remake of the same name. If what Woo had made was heroic bloodshed, then what Indian directors took from it and adapted it into was superheroic bloodshed. Combining Rajinikanth's heroics and John Woo's love of dark warehouses, slow motion and triple impact shots, the movies were so successful that the director of the second remake, Prabhudeva, decided to remake it for a third time, bringing the superheroic bloodshed genre to Bollywood in 2009 in the movie Wanted, starring Salman Khan, the son of Salim Khan, the man who inadvertently gave birth to the heroic bloodshed genre. It reads like poetry. From there on, Indian directors took that and really made it their own. A lot of the slow-mo, hard-hitting action we see today is the result of this conversation between the Hong Kong and the Indian cinema. And it's the sort of action that has a tendency to be dubbed unrealistic but isn't actually that easy to replicate. Indian cinema still has a long way to go, especially in terms of plagiarism and unique original scripts, but if we want such talent to keep growing, we have to appreciate the craft that goes into it. But after saying all that, I'd like to add in this clip from one of my favorite shows, Burn Notice.
I have 2 black belts and they kicked my ass.
I keep it going, I'm rolling and flowing, I'm coasting, I got them all trolling me right. I just keep growing and showing them, knowing I'm owning this flow, you can catch me outside.